Namaste students, Kusro Video. I begin Dr. Naren Singh Shekhawat, Assistant Professor, Department of Salyatantra, Clinical Consultant in Suryans Arogya Jyoti Vidyapith, Women's University, Jaipur. In previous class, we discussed about treatment, clinical feature, diagnostic tools, and some part of treatment of BPH. In consequence, today we will discuss the rest part of the treatment. Let's begin with TUMT, transurethral microwave thermotherapy. TUMT is an outpatient procedure that involves the delivery of microwaves directly to the prostate through a transurethral probe to raise the temperature of the prostate tissue to about 45 degrees Celsius. The heat causes death of tissue, thus relieving the obstruction. A rectal temperature probe is used during the procedure to ensure that the temperature is kept below 43.5 degrees Celsius to prevent rectal tissue damage. The procedure takes about 90 minutes. Post-operative urinary retention is a common complication. Thus, the patient is generally sent home with an indwelling catheter for 2 to 7 days to maintain urinary flow and to facilitate the passing of small clots or necrotic tissue. Antibiotics, pain medication, and bladder antispasmodic medications are used to tolerate and prevent post-procedure problems. The procedure is not appropriate for men with rectal problems. Anticoagulant therapy should be stopped 10 days before treatment. Mild side effects include occasional problems of bladder spasm, hematuria, dysuria, and retention. Second technique is transurethral needle ablation. Transurethral needle ablation (TUNA) is another procedure that increases the temperature of prostate tissue, thus causing localized necrosis. TUNA differs from TUMT in that low-wave radiofrequency is used to heat the prostate. Only prostate tissue in direct contact with the needle is affected, thus allowing greater precision in removal of the target tissue. The extent of tissue removed by this procedure is determined by amount of tissue contact, needle length, amount of energy delivered, and duration of treatment. This procedure is performed in an outpatient unit or physician's office using local anesthesia and IV or oral sedation. The TUNA procedure lasts approximately 30 minutes. The patient typically experiences little pain with an early return to regular activities. Complications include urinary retention, UTI, and irritative voiding symptoms. Example: frequency, urgency, dysuria. Some patients require a urinary catheter for a short time. Patients often have hematuria for up to a week. Laser prostatectomy. Third technique is laser prostatectomy. The use of laser therapy through visual or ultrasound guidance is an effective alternate to transurethral resection of the prostate (TURP) in treating BPH. Laser beam is delivered transurethral through a fiber instrument and is used for cutting, coagulation, and vaporization of prostatic tissue. There are a variety of laser procedures using different sources, wavelength, and delivery systems. Photovaporization. Fourth one is photovaporization. PAP use a high power green laser light to vaporize prostate tissue. Improvements in urine flow and symptoms are almost immediate after the procedure. Bleeding is minimal and a catheter is inserted for 20 to 24 to 48 hours afterward. PEP, photovaporization, works well for larger prostate gland. Fifth one is the interstitial laser recoagulation technique (ILC). The process is viewed through a cystoscope. A laser is used to quickly treat precise area of the enlarged prostate by placement of interstitial guides directly into the prostate tissue. Intraprostatic urethral stents. Symptoms from obstruction in patients who are poor surgical candidates can be relieved with intraprostatic urethral stent. The stents are placed directly into the prostatic tissue. Complications include chronic pain, infection, and incrustations. Second surgical therapy is invasive therapy. What is invasive therapy? Invasive treatment of symptomatic BPH involves surgery. The choice of the treatment approach depends on size and location of the prostatic enlargement and patient's factors such as age and surgical risk. So, students, rest part of treatment include invasive therapy. We will discuss in next class. Thank you, students. Okay, students. This session is powered by digital version 2.0 Jyoti Vidyapeeth Women's Jaipur. I hope you are satisfied with this digital session. If you have any doubts and queries, please mention in comments box. I will resolve it soon. Thank you, students. Namaste, students. Kusro video. I, JV and Dr. Naren Singh Segat, Assistant Professor, Department of Shalya Tantra, Faculty of Ayurvedic Science, Jyoti Vidyapeeth Women's University, Jaipur. In previous classes, we discussed about anatomy of liver and disorders of liver. In today's class, we will discuss about portal hypertension. In this diagram, you can see the hepatic portal circulation. Heart pumped blood into abdominal aorta and proper aorta hepatic artery to liver to hepatic veins via inferior vein cava drain to left atrium of right atrium of liver. This is the hepatic circulation. As you can see, uh, splenic vein and superior mesenteric veins drain blood into hepatic portal vein and it drain into liver. Yes, students. Sustained elevation of portal pressure more than 12 mm of Hg is called portal hypertension. Normal range of portal pressure is 8 to 12 mm of Hg. A rise in portal pressure stimulates portal systemic circulation. Portal vein carries 75% of blood flow to liver with all nutrients to maintain its integrity and give 50% oxygen supply to liver. 25% of hepatic blood flow given remaining 50% of oxygen supply to liver. Portal hypertension causes suspensive portosystemic venous collateral information, altered intrahepatic circulation, and increased ischemic blood flow. High pressure portal blood is diverted via coronary, short gastric, and esophageal veins into azygous veins. There is increased portal resistance and increased portal blood flow. Increased resistance may be pre-sinusoidal, sinusoidal, and post-sinusoidal. Uh, these are the causes of pre-sinusoidal, extrahepatic and intrahepatic. Extrahepatic portal vein, splenic vein thrombosis, intrahepatic schistosomasis and sarcoidosis. Sinusoidal causes cirrhosis, hematochromosis, Wilson disease, congenital hepatic fibrosis. Post sinusoidal is body cherry syndrome, congestive heart failure, veno-occlusive disease also. Causes of causes of portal hypertension. First, prehepatic. These are the prehepatic cause. B is hepatic. These causes mentioned in the hepatic, and post-hepatic causes are these. Sides of porta systematic collateral, as you can see, lower end of the esophagus between left gastric and short gastric veins with azygos. Umbilicus between paraumbilical vein and anterior abdominal vein, resulting in caput medusa. Retroperitoneum, bare area of liver, lower end of the rectum. These are the sides of porta systemic collateral. This is the porta systemic collaterals. As you can see that this one is 1, 2, 3, and bare area of liver also. Okay, students. Photo showing caput medusa. This is a photo medusa. Presentation means clinical features. Triodoportal hypertension for esophageal varix, splenomegaly, and ascites. These are the common and main triodoportal hypertension. Jaundice features of encephalopathy, recurrent infection, coagulopathy, hepatorenal syndrome. Investigations: liver function test, ultrasound, ultrafetoprotein, MELD scoring. This is a patient with ascites with portal hypertension. Doppler imaging, HVPG, hepatic venous pressure gradient, splintography. Now management. For portal hypertension, first general measures: anemia due to corrected, to be corrected. Anemia to be corrected. Nutrition supplementation, injection vitamin K, 10 mg IM for 5 days. Specific measures: treatment of esophageal varix, prevention of hepatic encephalopathy, treatment of ascites, measure of reduced portal pressure, surgery report, a systemic non-selective and selective. Transjugular intrahepatic portal systematic tips. This is the transjugular hepatic portal systematic stents are typically placed by an interventional radiologist under fluoroscope guidance. Access to liver is gained, as the name transjugular suggests, via internal jugular vein in the name. Once access to the jugular vein is confirmed, a guide wire and introducer sheet are typically placed to facilitate the shunt placement. This enables the interventional radiologist to gain access to the patient's hepatic vein by traveling from superior vena cava into the inferior vena cava and finally the hepatic vein. Once the catheter is in hepatic vein, a gauge pressure is obtained to calculate the pressure gradient in the liver. Following this, carbon dioxide is injected to locate the portal vein. Then a special needle known as calpinto is advanced through the liver parenchyma to connect the hepatic vein to the large portal vein near the center of liver. The channel of the shunt is next created by inflating an angioplasty balloon within the liver along with the tract created by the needle. The shunt is complex by placing a special mesh tube known as stent and endograft to maintain the track between the higher pressure portal vein and the lower pressure hepatic vein. After the procedure, fluoroscopy images are made to show placement, pressure in the portal vein and clinic are optimized. Drug to reduce the portal pressure like propanol, nadolol, isosorbidide, liver transplant. Final treatment is liver transplant. This pic is showing the tips trans infrared tips procedure. Okay, students. This session is powered by Digital Session 2.0 Jyoti Vidyapeeth One City. Hope you are satisfied with this digital session. If you have any doubts or queries, please mention in comment box. I will resolve it soon. Thank you, students.